welcome to Impact the Borough, the podcast from the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. I'm Brent Christensen, President and CEO of the Chamber. Each week, we'll check in with our partners to share inspiring stories and important information from across the borough, highlighting what we're doing to start and grow businesses, create quality jobs, and develop our workforce. This podcast is brought to you by Truliant Federal Credit Union, a modern, mission-driven financial institution focused on the needs of its members, the businesses it serves, and our community. With 5 locations in Guilford County, including a dedicated commercial lending office at Friendly Center and a highly rated mobile banking app, Truliant makes it their business to help you grow yours. Visit Truliant.org for more information.
Well, welcome. My name is Bramley Crisco, and I am the Director of Talent Development for Action Greensboro. And I am thrilled today to be hosting another edition of the Impact the Borough podcast for the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. And today I am thrilled that we're going to be highlighting some of our university and college partners, and we're kicking it off today with Guilford College. We're going to share a little more about what they're doing today in our community, and I'm happy to have their new president, Kyle Farmbry, here to join us, new to Greensboro. I say that, you've been here a little bit. And then a student in their program, Marisabel Guzman Cruz, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience. And we're just going to chat about what's happening, and there are lots of exciting things happening with our college partners, and I'm thrilled to have them share that information with us and share their story in person. So welcome and thank you again. I will just throw in that the program of Action Greensboro, Campus Greensboro, works every day to connect the 50,000 college students that are here in Greensboro, and with the hope that they get to know our local business partner, our community organizations, and that they would consider having a career and living and learning and working here after graduation. So we're happy to have this conversation and highlight those folks who are thinking about that and working and studying here every day. So welcome. Kyle, I would love if you would kick us off with just a brief introduction about yourself and what your role is there at Guilford College.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much, Bramley, for having us. This is a real delight. I am new, as you just mentioned, to Greensboro and to Guilford. I've been in the role of president of Guilford for now. I guess I'm winding up my second month. I started off on January 1st. And of course, new to Greensboro. And it's been a tremendous opportunity to both learn about the college and about Greensboro. So as president, my former role is I'm the chief executive officer for the college. And in the case of a college, that provides just a lot of really wonderful opportunities to interact with students and parents and alum and faculty and staff. There's a lot of my role that involves helping to collaborate in setting the vision for the college, building partnerships with local, regional, and national institutions to make sure that we are doing the best job that we possibly can for our students and for our alum who proudly represent Guilford College.
That's great. Thank you. And welcome to Greensboro. I'm sure you are learning all sorts of things every day. You learn something new probably. So we're happy to have you join this conversation.
Thank you.
Great. Marisabel, would you like to share what you're doing these days over there at Guilford College? It sounds like you have a packed schedule. You are a psychology major and a business communication minor. So I have a feeling you're pretty busy, but we'd love to hear more about what you're doing.
Of course. Thank you for having us again. Well, I am currently, as you mentioned, majoring in psychology, minoring in communications and business. I am technically a junior, but I'm graduating this spring, so I guess that will make me a senior now. I work in the president's office as a work study. I'm also working in admissions. During the beginning of the years, I'm an orientation leader, and during the school year, I'm also an RA, so pretty packed schedule. But Guilford has made it very smooth to transition, especially, so I'm actually from the Dominican Republic, and I moved straight from there to Guilford. So that has been a really good experience, just overall having everyone in those different departments support me.
You are very busy. I see that your schedule is packed, but you're also the perfect person for me to ask this question. When you work with students that are considering coming to Guilford, as you did yourself, how do you start that conversation? What do you tell them, and what do you highlight to make them think about coming as a student?
Well, one of the main things I would say is the diversity on campus. That's definitely something that really attracted me to Guilford. I also think the way that we can structure our own schedules was really helpful, just because our semesters are split. Instead of having a 15-week long semester, we have a 3-week and a 12-week within the same semester, and then same thing on the next semester, but 12-week and then 3-week. And that really allows students to just have very hands-on experience when we come to Guilford. And that is definitely one of the main things that also attracts people here, as well as we've been in the Colleges That Change Lives list for over 20 years now. And when you come to Guilford, you really get to see why, and how Guilford can make that impact in your life.
Very nice. That sounds like a good story to share. Kyle, I'm going to back it up just a little for those folks who may be listening to us and may never have been to Greensboro or to Guilford College. Would you share just a little bit about the college and kind of your size, your location, your focus in educating students?
Certainly. So Guilford sits on about 350 acres in a sort of corner of Greensboro. We're about 10 minutes from the airport. It's actually a very quick drive over to the airport. It's a school that was founded back in the 1830s by a community of Quakers in North Carolina, and it still carries very much of the sort of Quaker influence of the institution. It's a school that's small. We have an average of about 1,400 students. Our classrooms are small. And, on average, our classes are about 13 to 14 students. So someone who, I've spent my entire career in much larger institutions. The institution I came from had about 70,000 students in the entire system. Most of the schools where I've taught or worked before have had, 15 to 30,000 students. The experiences that I know I've had as the president of a college with 1,400 students is very different from one I've ever experienced beforehand. And I think there's a certain beauty in the smallness of our institution. Our students get to know the faculty, they get to know the staff, they get to know each other, and we get to create, I think, a set of experiences that many other colleges and universities don't get to create because of our size. And we have a very beautiful campus. I'm looking at my office window right now. We've got trees that are sort of spaced across campus. It's just really nice to be able to walk across a lot of old buildings that date back to the 1800s. So it's a great learning environment that's, again, sort of tucked away in a corner of Greensboro.
You just led me directly. I read something on your website and I thought this was a really nice saying. It says, rooted in values, reaching new heights. Guilford College is rooted in values and reaching new heights. And I wondered if you could both share, what does that mean for you, that rooted in values and reaching new heights? You talk about your beautiful campus that's been there for some time and, sort of where it started. How does that continue today? And then how does it lead to innovative new things that are happening?
Sure, I'll start off and then I'll toss it over to Marisabel because she's had the experience of being a student here. So Guilford is rooted in several core values and they're critical values for sort of the direction of our society. Transparency and honesty and openness and we see ethics as being really critical to where we are, and fostering a sense of civic engagement and ethical leadership that cuts across all that we do. And I think that a lot of that comes from sort of a reaffirmation of values and mission that come back to notions of simplicity. You're not going to find any sort of huge, sort of audacious building on the middle of Guilford's campus that you might find in many other places. Our buildings are relatively simple in terms of their design, And part of that is because we really do believe that much of the value of learning comes from the sort of inwardness and the ability for students to be able to reflect and engage in meaningful dialogue with others who are here. And we see a lot of that as we take a look at the different ways that we enact a number of the values for the institution. I'd love to hear from Marisabel in terms of how she sees some of our values manifest here.
Our values are like really present day to day. I know a lot of our faculty members kind of like use that as a way to like even involve it in the class, just because it comes up usually. So our values, as Kyle was mentioning, include like community, diversity, equality, excellence, integrity, stewardship, and justice. I think it's the seventh one. Our biggest one, I would say, definitely is community, which is something that is definitely like all around campus. Anyone you ask will tell you that community is just like really strong. I was just on a panel with alumni, and we were all talking about how that sense of community that we have at Guilford and like really like tight knit helps everyone just get through everything, just because you never feel like you're alone. And I'll say equality is also one of our biggest ones. We do refer to everyone by their first names, which is something that is because of the Quakers used to do that as well. And it really helps kind of like being on the same like level as everyone in terms of kind of like just reaching out to people, making connections. Yeah.
That's all really great answers. And your mention of community, again, you guys are doing such a good job leading me through this conversation in such an impactful way. But one of the things that we want to be sure to highlight in this conversation is our relationships with our local Greensboro community, whether that's businesses, community organizations. And I wonder if you might both highlight if there are some programs that stand out that add value to the education of students that involve our Greensboro community or business partners, and the other way, the other direction. Are there things that students, I know there are things that students are doing, but I'd love to hear about them, that are adding value to our local community and to our business partners. And so if you all might share just a little bit, if you know about some of those things that are going on.
Sure. Before we do so, can I actually go back to some of the values, if that's okay? And then we can do whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
super. So one of the things I just sort of want to go back to some of what Marisabel had shared in terms of our core values. The notion of equality really is, I think, so central to a lot of what we do. And Marisabel just gave an example of sort of the first name basis, which, as I talk with friends of mine who are at higher ed institutions, they sort of they scratch their heads when they hear that people don't refer to me as President Farmbry or Dr. Farmbry, but it's Kyle. And part of the reason for that is that there's a spirit that all of us are learning. So I'm going to learn as much from Marisabel as ideally she's going to be able to learn from me. And there's a certain relationship that evolves and emerges as you create kind of this level playing field where everyone is involved in this sort of same learning community. Also, really quickly on the notion of equality, from a historic perspective, Guilford College has played a really critical role in terms of supporting the equality of the region. So on the edge of campus, there's something that's known as the Guilford Woods. And both Guilford and the Guilford Woods were part of the Underground Railroad. So if you take a walk through a certain trail that we have on the Guilford Woods, you can feel the sides of the trees. And many of them are nails that were planted there by the abolitionists back in the 1800s as guideposts for many of the escaping slaves. So this is a place that back in the 1800s had sort of within its core values this notion of one person being equal to somebody else. And that's something I think we've carried forward throughout our history as an institution. And I think that when you then link that to some of the things that we're doing within the community and linkages within the community, we have a number of service opportunities, things that we've created here at Guilford. We have a farm that's a college farm, and it kind of grew out of some of our movements to notions of community gardening. And now that farm actually provides a place for many of our students to go and work. We provide a lot of vegetables for the local community. And there's a great sort of link between the Guilford Farm and the community as a whole. For more than 20 years, we've had the Brian series, which is a series of lectures that we offer to the broader community. We actually had a great opening lecture last week, a fellow by the name of Yusuf Salam, who is a member of what's called the Exonerated Five, used to be called the Central Park Five. And he talked about issues of criminal justice and justice reform, and very, very powerful speech. And again, part of what we provide and the link to the community. I mentioned the Underground Railroad. We have something called Every Campus a Refuge, where we've been hosting refugee families for now, I believe it's been about 6 or 7 years, and we've hosted upwards of 60 families who have stayed on campus as they've made their transitions to U.S. society. So we have lots of examples like that. And I think that the connection to the broader business communities, we think about the role of business ethics and ethics in a broader society. We have some important examples and some great messaging that we've been able to share with others in Greensboro. And I think part of these examples provide a base for understanding what businesses can do in a broader community around building a spirit of commonness among everyone there.
I think all of the things you highlighted are certainly impactful, and you know those are the important things for us to be talking about that we may not think of every day that our college partners are doing, but they certainly create a great value here in the community. Marisabel, looking about those things, how do you feel connected to Greensboro, and what has it meant for you to be at a college in Greensboro in particular?
I have really been able to just be very involved in the Guilford campus, as well as I've done some like volunteering jobs in different organizations all around. One of them, I was doing like basically helping kids be entertained while their parents were like taking classes to learn English, and they were all like refugees or immigrants. And that was kind of like the most like me being connected to another organization I've had so far. I also know a lot of my friends from the education program are working with like different schools all around Greensboro. We also have the Soy Un Líder, which is like a pre-college program for the Latinx community, which I've also been kind of like involved with.
Well, again, lots of insights on programs that perhaps people didn't know were happening, and they are, and we're thrilled to hear about those. The next thing I want to ask you, and this is sort of looking at the college as a whole, but if you talked a little bit about recruiting people and looking at bringing folks to campus, but what should folks consider as they think about, if they know nothing about Guilford College and they're thinking about Greensboro as a place to live, work, and learn? Are there certain things or any particular thing that may stand out? Maybe a whole bunch of things, but that you think people may not know about. We've talked about a lot of really interesting things in the community partnerships, but is there anything that stands out that you want to make sure folks know about Guilford College before we wrap up our conversation here?
So I think that there is tremendous value in size of community. And I'm gonna underscore both the size piece of that and the community piece of that. I think that here we are able to build a very different type of community than you can in other places. And by here, I'm talking about both Guilford and Greensboro. And part of it is because it's relatively easy to get to know other members of the community. And because both those other members of community are looking at what we can sort of do to improve our well-being. And also because of the fact that people are looking for other ways to connect, there's sort of an interesting dynamic that allows you to grow and build on a lot of that momentum. I had a really wonderful time catching up with some friends who, like me, spent a number of years in the New York City area and then also in the Washington, D.C. area. And about a month and a half ago, they said, give it about 2 or 3 weeks and you'll understand why we don't want to leave. And 2 or 3 weeks later, I said, yeah, I get it. you can get from one place to the other with very little congestion. You can get to know who your neighbors are pretty quickly. You can get the sense of shared spirit and shared community that, though I loved living in these different areas, I still didn't get a sense of the sense of shared community that I feel here. And at Guilford, I think that we do our best to promote that, and we engage our students and everybody who's connected with the college into feeling that sense of shared community. And just doing better for ourselves and others. We don't see them as mutually exclusive. We see them as sort of, the bonds that connect us, and we want to strengthen those bonds over time. And I think that's a lot of what we teach, and a lot of what we learn, and a lot of what we're doing here at Guilford. And so far, my experience is that's what's happening in Greensboro as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. It's a place where you can connect easily with others and keep lifelong learning going. And Marisabel, you came to Greensboro, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what it would mean to other people to be in this area, and what your experience has been, and how you would share that with others as they look at our community.
So if I'm being completely honest, I was terrified when I first got here. So I moved directly from the Dominican Republic. As I mentioned before, my family was back there. And so I got here, I had already decided to come into Guilford when I first visited. I came for the first time for orientation. And I can say that as of right now, everything about Guilford and everything about Greensboro, my personal, what I tell people if they're telling me they're thinking of coming here, is if you want to go to a place where you feel like you belong, and where you're not just there, but there's people trying to get you to do better. There's a lot of connections to be made, a lot of opportunities. I definitely would say that they can come to Guilford and they can come to Greensboro, and all of those are going to be there.
That is so great to hear. And thank you for sharing that, because that's, quite brave to choose a place to go and show up there and make your home. So congratulations. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Before we wrap up our conversation here, I just want to ask either of you, I want to give people a resource. So if they're looking to learn more about Guilford College and the things that are happening on campus, or get in touch with the folks there, what's the best way for them to find out what's happening at Guilford College and to learn more?
So the easiest way is for folks just to hop on our website. And the website is www.guilford.edu. So that's probably the easiest way. And then this possibly is by virtue of the smallness of our institution. I would say feel free to email different folks at Guilford, take a look at your interests or your needs. And if you have a question about academic affairs, we have a provost who does a wonderful job in terms of shaping some of the different academic programs and working with our faculty. Many of our faculty are around, and you can look them up and reach out to them. And then I'm pretty easy to find on the website as well, and I don't mind folks just looking me up and sending me a note. And I very much enjoy having some opportunities to engage with folks who want to know more about Guilford.
That's great. Thank you.
I'd also say that I also work front desk in admissions, and definitely we're always there available. We'll normally do have a student worker in the front desk, and we'd be happy to connect anyone with any resources, any faculty, or anything of what Kyle just mentioned as well.
Thank you. Great. And I'm going to share on my behalf of the programs that I'm working with that we have over the years had many Guilford College students participate in the programming of Campus Greensboro, whether it's in our community challenges or our summer fellows internship program. We've enjoyed them connecting with us and participating in those programs. So if any students or anyone listening is looking to participate in any of our programming that introduces college students to both business and community partners here in Greensboro, they can find us at campusgreensboro.org, and the details on all of those programs are out there. But again, huge thank you to you both for being part of this conversation. Would love if there are any last comments you'd like to share, and otherwise I'll get us wrapped up, but your time has been very valuable and I appreciate your help.
So from my end, a big thank you for inviting us to this conversation. I think it's an example of the type of community that we're in. There are lots of folks in Greensboro who care a lot about this community, who are doing their best to show off everything that we have to offer the world. And I'm really excited to be part of this conversation. So thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely.
Make sure to subscribe so you get new episodes delivered to your device each week. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at GSO Chamber. See you next time.